Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Product for Product. It's Matt and Moshe here. Thanks for tuning in this week. We are excited to have John Fontenot on the show to talk about how he uses Roadmunk. Roadmunk is a product management road mapping tool that helps PMs communicate strategy. So welcome to the show, John. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Glad to be here.
Hi, John. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So my name is John Fontenot, like Matt said in the intro. I'm a growth PM at Lendio. Lendio is a fintech company. We're a two-sided marketplace connecting small businesses who need capital to capital lenders. And before Lendio, I was a core PM at a HR tech company called SwipeClock, where we were building a full HRMS suite for small businesses who needed everything from onboarding and applicant tracking all the way to benefit management and getting information into payroll so employees could get paid. So it's a bit of a diverse background, but it's been a great ride so far in product.
Nice. And you also have your own initiative or company, I'm not sure how you call it, the Path to Product.
Yeah. Path to Product was the origins of that was kind of from my own journey where I tried to transition into product. I thought my previous experience to product was pretty transferable. I was working as a contractor for Intel and their software group. And we were basically connecting with product orgs of different software companies and helping them optimize their software with Intel technologies, and then working with Intel's marketing for go-to-market planning. And so it was a bit of a diverse role, getting to see the side of like product development and getting to experiment with things like design thinking and story mapping and things like that, but kind of more in a consultative, if that's how you say it, role. But yeah, that's what got me interested in product. And then the transition wasn't smooth, and I figured there had to be a better way. So after a lot of research, I nailed down kind of what hiring managers were looking for and why aspiring PMs were getting stuck in the recruiting process, and kind of put all that input together to form an experience-based course, so to speak. I built it like a course. That's what people are familiar with. But at the end of it, you have a portfolio project that you can use to help get hired that shows tangible experience as a PM.
Oh, I see. That's very cool.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure people are finding your stuff useful, because I know a lot of people are actually struggling with that. So that's really a great service for the community. So let's talk about Roadmunk. That's what we're here for today. Our next product for feedback and road mapping. So tell us a bit about your experience with Roadmunk. How long have you been using it? Where are you using it? The feature you're using it, etc.
Sure. So I've only been at Lendio for about 3 months now, and I'd heard of Roadmunk. I'd seen demos of it, but I didn't really start using it until I came to Lendio. And at first it was a new tool, so there's a little bit of a learning curve, but frankly, where I came from, where we were using AHA for road mapping and strategy mapping, it was a lot more intuitive. So I was able to pick it up and run probably in about 10 minutes. And I've been diving into different features over the last few months. And it's been, for the most part, a really good experience and a pretty good tool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we heard before when we talked about the HUD that the learning curve over there is a bit higher.
Right. We've heard that a couple of times now. Mm-hmm.
I think the analogy your guest used, it was the Photoshop when a lot of people look for Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was the analogy. That was a good analogy. So it was a little bit too much.
Yeah, but still, there are lots of people that love AHA, so we're not here to say anything
absolutely.
Bad about it or whatever. But yeah, so you have some perspective over there using both AHA and Roadmunk. So tell us a bit about what features are you guys using with the Roadmunk? Are you using the feedback and ideas one? Are you using the road mapping?
Yeah, primarily road mapping. So I've used the ideas and feedback a little bit, but primarily for our use case. So we have 14 product teams and growing. It's the company's been growing quite a bit lately. But the 14 PMs and each director who oversees a handful of us a piece, we all have our own roadmap, right? So even the directors have their own kind of focus as far as like individual contributor product management, which is interesting. And then each PM under them has their own lane too. And so we kind of manage our roadmap through our charter. individually, and then we have kind of a lane-based roadmap that encompasses all the direct reports of each director, and then we have a company-wide roadmap. Each level you go up to the different sections of roadmaps or the different levels of roadmaps, there's different levels of granularity and different audiences for each one.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
So tell us a bit more about the roadmaps that you're creating for these levels. Are those like time-based roadmaps, like those traditional Gantt chart type of roadmaps that you have specific, dates that things you think are going to be completed and milestones, etc., or they are more of outcome-based roadmaps where you have like now, next, later type of buckets?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a little bit of a blend. So we have the Gantt chart style. There's like the Kanban board option, and there's the Gantt chart style. And we do use the Gantt chart style with like kind of a 6-month view is kind of where we focus. And the reason I say it's a mix is because the way we name them is outcome focused. So each initiative has a clear outcome tied to it, and we name each, I guess, epic. That's pretty much what we put on the roadmap, at least for the higher level views, is epic based timelines and with an outcome attached to it to show why we're doing it, right? But each level you go down where it gets more granular. So at the individual level, it kind of mirrors our Jira board a little bit, where we have kind of what's dev in progress, what's design in progress, and what's going through discovery. So at each individual level, we have it kind of laid out that way in a much more granular way, so that way our directors can see kind of where things are at in progress, and they don't have to go searching through the Jira board.
Oh, I see. Is there an integration between the two?
I believe there is, but we don't use it. But I think I saw that it does exist.
Yeah, I did look into the Jira integration before we spoke today. So they definitely have looks to be a pretty strong integration with Jira. So the change, and it goes either way. So changes in Roadmunk and changes in Jira can work between the two. So they update accordingly. So it's pretty automated, it looks like.
Do you remember if they mentioned that there is other integration other than Jira, like Azure DevOps or other tools?
No, we use it pretty much as a standalone tool.
So there is a bit of synchronization that you have to do, manual synchronization there. For
sure. Whether it's it's kind of funny, like our org charts in one tool, we map strategy in another, roadmaps in another, and then execution through Jira in another. So it's a little bit disparate there, but it gets the job done.
Now, going a bit more about those levels of roadmaps that you have. You said that there is the higher level and the lower levels. Are they feeding each other?
Definitely, yeah. It's just that at each level further down, where it's more granular, there's just more detail. But typically at the executive level, what they see is just the bigger initiatives. So like the smaller stories that are being worked on, or the tech debt that's being worked on. They don't see that because frankly, they at that level, they probably don't care as much. But basically the bigger things we think are going to drive the biggest impact for the organization in that 6-month window, that's what they see.
Does each team own their own individual roadmap, or is it one product organization that owns it?
Each product team. So in the 14 product teams that I mentioned, each product team has a PM, a UX designer, and at least 3 developers. And so each product team has their own roadmap and owns that.
And then it feeds up to the higher level roadmaps.
Correct.
Nice. Before we go into more about the usability of Roadmunk specifically, who do you share those with? Are you sharing them also externally with your clients?
Not my team. I don't know if there's other teams that do, but we mostly use it internally, right? So the roadmap is used to anchor conversations within the product team, within the broader product organization, and also with our key stakeholders who don't live inside of it.
The stakeholders that are still internal in the organization.
Correct. Key internal stakeholders. That's right.
Right. So you're not sure if it is actually shared outside, because that's usually is also a contentious type of decision to make, because if you're committing to something, especially if there are dates on it, if it is a Gantt chart type of roadmap, then how do you make it accurate that people actually will set the right expectations and get the right expectations?
Yeah, even further than that, right? Not just external expectations, but even internal expectations of when things will be released. We have a a general rule of thumb of when we give out dates to internal stakeholders.
Oh,
We try to manage that carefully.
so what is that? If you can share, of course.
I
Oh, you
don't
can.
think it's proprietary. So basically, there's like a midway point in development where the dev team checks in, measures progress against what the estimates were, and if we're on track, then at that point we'll give what the estimated completion date was to our internal stakeholders.
Mm-hmm. I used to work in a company that we established a type of estimates that we said if you are in the beginning stage of the product or feature ideation, at that time there is so many unknowns, so we give whatever based on the unknowns, we give an estimation, but then the rate of error will be 400% plus minus. Which is quite a lot.
Yeah.
And then the closer that you get, or the more information that you get in your discovery, then it goes down to 200%, and then 100%, and then 50%, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's how they managed it back then, which was really interesting. So let's go back to what you said about the usability of Roadmunk, and that you were able to learn it faster than the previous product that you use. Tell us a bit more about that. What do you find? Why do you find it more user friendly or more discoverable?
Yeah, so there's a lot to say there, but I'll try to unpack it in a coherent way. So
Sure.
when you first get into Roadmunk, it's pretty clear that their leading value proposition, or the strongest feature that they kind of lead with, is the roadmap portion itself, right? They have integrations, they have the ability to capture ideas and feedback, but that's not what they lead with, and it frankly isn't very discoverable to find those other things. You have to do some digging around to find it. But with that said, know your strengths. I think it's a good thing that they set things up the way they did. But it's pretty simple. You can jump right in. You can start adding items, and it's really neat because you can add a bunch of roadmap items just in like a column list, almost like a spreadsheet column. And then from there, create your visualization, and they give you the option of the Gantt chart view, or they call it the timeline view, versus the Kanban board. And then it's just the buttons to add things, it's simple, right? They don't have like a lot of feature bloat. And so they're able to put things into the UI that makes sense in a very easy to find place, right? Like you could tell their designers are familiar with design best practices and how they place things. And so it's pretty easy to find whether you're in kind of the initial stages of the roadmap build out, or once you're actually in the timeline or Gantt or Kanban board view, how to add more items. And they have some pop-up modals that make it really easy. And I don't know, to me, the design is very intuitive for the roadmap side of it.
I see. Just as a full disclosure, I'm from Toronto, and Roadmunk is also from Toronto. Not that I
Nice.
have any connections, anything other than that. But I remember I've been in an event that they were sponsoring a few years ago. I think it was a year before COVID started, maybe more, where they actually were talking about their new, they were working at that time on the ideas and feedback features. So I know that it is definitely a more newer functionality over there. So maybe they do have to learn more and get more feedback. Like you said, it's not as discoverable as the road mapping functionality. Yeah, but I know some people that are using it, so it's definitely something that is there. Do you know why? I think you mentioned that you guys are not using it, but you explored it. But do you know why you guys are not using it, or have you used feedback before? And what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I don't know, for those who were at the company before me, because those features aren't that discoverable, how much they've been explored by others. But looking at it, I think there could be value, like from an internal standpoint, on the feedback feature, right? Like we typically over communicate as a company, which I love. I lean towards over communication versus working in silos and then showing results when they're done.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're getting feedback along the way, but it's a great mechanism to store that feedback, or to give access into the product where they can go in, do your roadmap, and then get feedback on it. And the thing that I like about Roadmunk, it doesn't dictate how to use the product as much. And that's something that I saw part of the learning curve issue when I used AHA, was there's a pretty, I wouldn't say rigid, but almost rigid way that you're supposed to use the product. And they kind of give you guides to using it. Roadmunk's pretty open, whether it's with feedback or ideas. to where you can kind of use it as you want, right? Use it as a tool, like a hammer. You can tear down a wall, or you can build something with a hammer. You just use it however you want. And that's kind of how I view Roadmunk, is that it's a more flexible tool.
I see. That's a very interesting point, because there is, on one hand, the paradigm to provide a tool that can be very flexible and you can do many different things with it, or work with it with the way you want to work with it. But then the other one, like you mentioned, that they almost force you to work in a certain way. And I've seen that also in other products before. And I think part of it is coming from the notion that it's not just a tool, but it also gives you the practice or best practices based on how they think are best practices.
Totally.
Like guide rails.
Exactly. And some people like that because they want to be taught or told how to do things that are best practice. They don't want to think about the best practice or figure it out on their own, where other people prefer to either figure it out on their own, see what works for them, iterate, or just, learn from others and adopt it, but not through the application, but more through other means. So that's a very interesting point. Yeah, I think you also told us before something about how to look into feedback and how to prioritize feedback, and how does it go into your roadmap. So I would love for you to share it with our audience, because I think that's also was a very interesting point.
Yeah, and this comes down to kind of a philosophical approach to product, right? Where even tools like Aha, where you can give external customers or partners an interface to go and submit ideas or feature requests, then you can upvote them. I don't think Roadmunk has that external functionality. I think the way they position it is more as you gather feedback from other sources, whether it's emails or phone calls or chats or internal, Slack messages. You can basically copy and paste those things into the ideas portion and prioritize. And they give you the RICE framework as kind of the default prioritization mechanism, which is interesting. It's good for a lot of things, not for everything, but it's a pretty popular one. So going back to the idea of using best practices to help guide people along the right way. And they do some like auto math and auto calculations for you to help in prioritization. But taking a step back from my rambling, the more philosophical thing to me is how you leverage the tool. Right. At a previous company, we took 6 months out of our roadmap and prioritized the 3 top feature requests and built them, and made a lot of mistakes within that effort, but just built them as we thought the request was intended to be developed. And only one of those 3 features got adoption and actually saw like a revenue outcome. The other 2 got very little adoption. And the fact matters because we were solving the wrong problem, right? We were being presented with a request to a problem, but we didn't take the time to understand what the real problem was and build the right solution to a clearly defined problem. And to me, that's the danger of these tools where you collect ideas, especially in the case where you can let people upvote them, where you're setting some expectations of, hey, this is the winner. Why aren't you guys doing this?
I think we've been, at least I can talk for myself, on this side of feature request where, there was features and ways that I really, really wanted, and I upvoted for them. And so we were familiar from our perspective. But you're right. Feature feedback and upvoting and number of people that are asking for something should definitely not be the only thing that make us prioritize features. It should be only insights into what people are looking for, but this is only what people are saying, not necessarily what people are doing or will do once you will give them that solution.
Yeah, I think a great example of this, and the way that I prefer to use that mechanism, and I'll go back to when I used Aha. I know this is a Roadmunk conversation, so I apologize for going back and forth so much. When requests would come in or ideas would come in, I would use that as an opportunity to have conversations, right? Not everybody wants to jump on the phone with you and talk about what they like, what they don't like, and allow you the time and space to do that generative user research that you'd want to do. And so since these people have a vested interest, they're submitting ideas, it gave me a platform to have those conversations much more easily. And so I'd kind of cherry pick the requests that seemed interesting and just really try to dive deep into almost like a job speed done interview of what are they trying to do. And it was amazing how different the actual problem was than what we perceived it to be based on what was submitted. So like my advice based on my experience is like, even if using this feature, which I assume we could use it anytime, even with Roadmunk, even though it's more like, self-generated from copying and pasting from other sources, is to really use it as a follow-up mechanism to try to clearly define what the problem is. That way you can get to that level of prioritization, because it's not about prioritizing feature requests. It's about prioritizing problems to solve that meet a business objective.
Outcomes.
Yeah, definitely. So how do you systemize it today? You have quite a bit number of teams that are working on it, and I'm sure that has to support many clients and internal stakeholders and etc. How do you systemize all the different ideas and feedback that you're getting, so to help you get those insights about what people are asking for?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a big answer. So I think it starts with segmentation, which might sound strange, but if you don't have your market segmented, and I guess this might primarily be a B2B statement, but let's say 10% of your market is retail, just as a random example, and you're getting a lot of requests, and come to find out the problem that you're trying to solve is for 10% of your market, right? Are you going to prioritize that over a problem that if you solve it, it would reach 50% of your market, because 50% of your market's healthcare? So at the end of the day, like, if you don't have segmentation, how can you understand the reach of the problem and who that problem applies to know that if you solve that problem, that this is the likely impact that it'll have? And so I think it really starts with segmentation, and then being able to take the problem statements and look at prioritization from the impact that you're trying to make based on the behavior you're trying to change through solving that problem.
Nice. A few more questions about your experience with Broadbank. What do you think is like their best features?
It's going to sound silly, but my favorite feature is the fact that, like, on the timeline view, you don't have to click into the little bar or the column that it sits within, or the row, to be able to make adjustments. But we know that development is fluid. And so timelines might be quicker than expected. They might be further than expected. And so if you hover over the little line, it gives you to show you the expected development time. You can just simply drag it. And as you drag it, it'll show you how many days in the future based on the calendar that represents. So if something is supposed to ship on July 6th, for instance, and it's going to be pushed out 3 days because some new variable was added, you can simply just drag it and it'll show you, like, without having to click into it and select a date picker, it'll just show you like where it falls on the calendar, which to me is pretty slick. Probably second to that, if not of equal importance to me, is the ability to put in subtasks and to be able to assign dates to those. So especially in the higher level view, where executives see, here's this epic that we're building that's going to take however much time, you could add subtasks like your stories and show like what is all going to be included in that epic, and then assign different dates to that based on how your sprints are laid out.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound silly at all, because this is really it's all about user experience, and if that makes a lot of sense to you, I'm sure it makes it to a lot of other users, and yeah, I'm sure it's very helpful for many users. And then is there a feature that you really don't like, or you don't find useful, or it's hard for you to use? I mean, you want to use it, but it's hard for you to use. We always ask this question, so in case that Roadmunk are listening, then that's another feedback for them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I hate it, but it's just I don't understand it. They have a feature called milestones, so you could add different items to your roadmap and whatnot. But there's this little button hanging out there, milestones, and I've clicked on it a couple of times. I've looked at it, and I really don't understand how it's different from like the subtask within the, I guess, the timeline view portion, where you can add the subtask. And so I guess my feedback to Roadmunk is like making that clearly different, or naming it something different to where it's more intuitive of what you're trying to accomplish with that feature.
Coming from project management world, I used to use and also develop software for project management many years ago. Milestones, from what I remember, was more a date based thing. So it was one date. It wasn't a range of dates. So it's not like a task that you have to start and end sometime, but it's a specific date in time, or it's something that happened in a specific date in time. So you have a milestone that you want to hit, like when you release something, that will be a milestone. Or when you get into a specific outcome, like a number of people that convert, that will be a milestone. Does that make more sense in the context of roadmap?
It does make sense. What I see even within our growth team doing is just creating another like timeline item instead of a milestone that only lasts for a day, and we're saying that's like the day that we ship, or we're looking at it in terms of like the last day on that range of dates is the ship date. So I think it's interesting that if that's what they intend for their users to use it as, I'd be curious to see how, like, what kind of adoption they have, and like what their qualitative research shows of how people manage release dates within the Roadmunk product.
Yeah, so maybe next time you look at that, try to see if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that also means to me that there is definitely some direction over there towards project management style of roadmaps, because that's really talks to that experience that I have with, I used Primavera in the past. I used my Microsoft Project very heavily in the past. I'm talking here like between 18 to 20 years ago, when, or maybe even 70 to 20 years ago, when I was developing a time management system that would integrate with these type of systems, which was very project management. But our clients were not software development clients. They were more power, gas and power and manufacturers, so different type of industries.
Yeah,
cool. And did you have any interaction with the company, with Roadmunk, or did other people in your organization that you can also talk about, how they are when working with them? Are they obsessed about their clients?
No, I haven't had any direct interaction with people at the Roadmunk company, and I haven't really talked to so our chief product officer and one of our VPs of product, I think, were the ones who decided to go with Roadmunk as our road mapping tool. But I don't really know what the vetting process was between the different tools, or what the decision point was to go with Roadmunk. Apologize for that.
No worries. Yeah, I mean, some companies that we heard are just the first tool that they found and made sense. They just use that, especially these days when you can get free trial, and I believe they do have a free trial at Roadbank.
Yeah.
You can try it out. You can see all the different options, and then you're like, yeah, that works. Let's just use that.
Yeah, they have a 14-day trial period.
There is quite a bit of competition these days, and the more we talk about these products, although I didn't try all of them myself, it seems like they're all giving the basic solution for what people are looking for in product. Then it's a bit of price and user experience, I guess, and convenience. So there is maybe quite a bit of because of that competition and similarities between some of these products. There is quite a bit of I don't know if they're really looking into a lot of those products and comparing them or not, but that will be interesting to hear from people. So we hope that people actually will comment on our podcast and let us know, because that will be really great to hear. Okay, cool. So Matt, do you have any other questions for John?
No, this has been really helpful. I normally ask data questions, but it doesn't appear as though they have any sort of analytics or dashboarding capabilities that come along with it. So I think I'm okay. I did have a question about integrations, but it sounded like you're not utilizing the Jira integration. Was there any other integrations you're using, the tech stack there?
No, we just use it as a standalone product right now.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, so that's all the questions I had. Okay,
great. So, John, where can everyone find you?
You can find me at LinkedIn. It's where I'm most active. You could obviously find me at pathtoproduct.io. If you want to come join the community there, we have a healthy mix of aspiring PMs and senior PMs there. You can also find me at Twitter at ProductFont.
Yeah, so I'm sure people will be able to find you very easily.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining the show, John. This has really been a pleasure having you, and wish you all the best of luck with your business and your work with Roadmunk. So thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much.
Have a good day.